From the ancient Zapotec civilization of Monte Alban in Oaxaca, Mexico, to the abandoned city of Ephesus in western Turkey, to the remote and mysterious Machu Picchu in Peru. Join us as we search for the world's most fascinating lost worlds, next on Earth Diaries. Hello, I'm Laura Green and welcome to Earth Diaries, where we seek out the most extraordinary and intriguing places of the world. Nothing captivates us more than the discovery of a lost civilization, deciphering artifacts and putting together the pieces of a forgotten culture. Well, this week's Earth Diaries take you to several mysterious cities around the world that were abandoned, often for centuries, before being rediscovered by adventurers and archaeologists. Our first diary takes us to the enchanting region of Oaxaca in the tip of southeastern Mexico. Now, it's believed that the Zapotec tribes who ruled this land spent 100 years flattening the mountaintop by hand in order to create their ceremonial city. And as you're about to see, the results are nothing short of spectacular.
Monte Alban is located in Oaxaca state, located southern Mexico areas, and is considered to be one of the largest archaeological sites in Mexico and one of the oldest cities built between 600 and 500 years before Christ was born. Monte Alban is an area which was used by the Zapotecs to build their most important temples, palaces for the upper class, and also an area where Zapotecs had terraces where they could build their homes around the mountain, and also at the base of the mountain they had their fields where they grew corn to eat every day. In order to build all these impressive temples and palaces, Zapotecs had to flat it down completely, and they had to get rid of stones, mortar, vegetation, and it took them more than 100 years approximately to accomplish that, which was the first stage to have the platform completely ready before the buildings started being built. Zapotecs had a concept that the only way to purify a place and a person had to be through fire. They had to burn their homes when the leader or the female leader of the house passed away, because that was a way to help the soul enter into the new world. All of the relatives had to move away 6 months to a year. They would come back, and then they would start using the foundation of the house and restart building on that foundation. This is the north platform of Monte Alban. You'll find a deep patio, as we call it, here in Oaxaca, which was used with the purpose of celebrations or meetings of the elite class. There you'll find an altar, which was also used as a base for speakers to stand. Jaguar represents for the Zapotec culture a symbol of wisdom and strength. This animal was always associated to the upper class. This is a panel decorated with a jaguar stomach, frontal claw, back claw, and the tail. The head is not there. We do not know what happened with the head. The ball core is important in Monte Alban because it will take us to a time when Zapotecs perform different rituals. The ball was made with a tree known as a rubber tree, and they hit the ball with their hands, with their joints, with their hips, and the idea was to try to put the ball into the niche. In Monte Alban, there are no rings, or there was no ring found like the Mayans had it in the region. And the two niches we found were the ones used as a place to deposit the ball in and make the goal precisely, and that's how they scored the game. We believe that this ritual at the beginning was associated with religious beliefs, like, for instance, asking the god of the rain to provide enough rain for the crops, or they requested the gods to help them to go into the battle. When the priests were here performing the ritual, it was an activity performed with the purpose also of offering humans to the gods. He got to be killed for being the best, and he had to give his heart, or basically, according to the bold core evidence in Mexico, we know that they were also decapitated, and their heads were given to the gods as offerings. This ritual started changing in the area of Oaxaca and got to be more used as a political or government activity to solve difficult situations. The Dancer's Corner in Monte Alban is one of the most visited places, and is a place which was found in 1806 by a captain from the Spanish forces, and he found big stones with these human representations on them. These stones had humans performing weird movements, and therefore he came up with the idea of naming them dancers. And since those days we call them dancers, the dancers of Monte Alban. The mystery about Monte Alban, why got to be abandoned? And there is no really an answer for that. We have different interpretations, different theories. One that the drought came, another one that Zapotecs had problems within them as a society, lack of leadership, or some others talk about the interfere of different cultures, like in this case the Mixtecos moving into the Central Valleys. I would say that although we have tried to find evidence, enough evidence to support any of these theories, we haven't really been able to really say, well, this is what happened in Monte Alban. After the Mixtecos were here, Aztecs arrived, but they mainly used the base of the mountain. So when the Spaniards arrived in 1521 into the central valleys of Oaxaca, Monte Alban was completely covered with vegetation. It was until 1806 when we have a formal group of explorers sent by the Spanish leaders up into Monte Alban, and it was until the beginning of the 1930s when we find archaeologists from Mexico doing a research in Monte Alban. Monte Alban is being excavated only 10%, and we have 90% untouched. So still, we have to do more research about Monte Alban. We don't even know the original name of Monte Alban today. I am a half Zapotec person, and it's important for me to come to Monte Alban, and I think Monte Alban is a good evidence to prove that our culture, our ancestors as Zapotecs, were able enough to accomplish such beautiful temples and constructions and tombs, concepts of respecting each other's activity and property. Zapotecs here in Monte Alban talk to us through their pyramids or temples and palaces that you can achieve whatever you want, and they did it great.
Well, Monte Alban literally means white mountain. It was named by Spanish explorers who found an abundance of white-flowered trees growing in the area. Mexican archaeologists hope that continued excavation will someday reveal the original Zapotec name of the city. We continue now to one of the best-preserved classical cities of the Mediterranean. Ephesus in western Turkey was founded by the Greeks, became a key city for trade during the Roman Empire, and in a mystery that still baffles historians, it was abandoned and left to disappear under centuries of vegetation. Rediscovered slightly more than 100 years ago, the excavation of Ephesus continues. Its many buried secrets just waiting to be uncovered.
Ephesus was the capital city of Asia Minor and the population more than 200,000 people. Before the Turkish civilization started, there was the local people in Anatolia, and later on, all culture, the Roman, the Byzantine, and the Turkish, they mixed in this land. The city is founded late 3rd century. In that time, there was a tree library on all the world. Alexandria in Egypt, the Pergamon, and the last one, the Ephesus. The Celsius library is a kind of heron. You know, the lower part is belong to the grave, and the upper part is belong to library. And there was more than 100,000 scroll. The property is very large. There was 9 kilometers all over the city, 20 kilometers all around the city. The city excavated nearly 10% and the rest of them under the earth. This column is original. When we excavate it, we will find more than 2 meters deep. The same houses was used more than 1,000 years. This belonged to Roman rich houses, the wealthy person. This room, it's what we call the theater room, because the right side and the left side wall painting with theater mask and mythological game. This part is the mostly 4,000 square meters and 3 main terraces. And under the roof, we have 7 houses. All these rooms full of earth. After the first excavation, there was many inscriptions. So we had the many information. It's about the name of the city, the name of the Ephesus. You know, on my life, I find it many of them. It's very exciting.
Well, historical records suggest that after the crucifixion of Jesus, St. John traveled with the Virgin Mary to Turkey and they settled in Ephesus. In fact, many believe this to be the region where Mary spent the final years of her life. The city of Tikal in northern Guatemala is the largest ruined city of the ancient Mayan civilization. Deep in the misty jungle where jaguars roam and howler monkeys swing through canopy treetops, rise towering pyramids and the remains of royal palaces dating back to the 4th century.
Tikal began as an agricultural nucleus 600 years before Christ, and it's believed that it turned into a ruling theocracy. This was only accessible to the nobility, the clan, the ones that had the knowledge to the heavens. These temples here were an access, a porthole to the 13 levels of underworld in which the gods would have been gathered, and we would have constantly had to bring tribute and offering onto. The round stones that are to be seen all throughout the area, they were used as altars on which constant tribute and offering was placed onto: jade, obsidian, flint. The monuments here are not hollow. They are of massive volume. The unique thing is that they were able to make an imprint with a very porous stone. The people had access to this place. These guys were about 6 feet of height. They thought that they could turn into gods because of life expectancy. They would have been walking around here very proudly with a system of writing and a system of numbering that would have let everybody know that, hey, I reached to see 2, 3 cartoons. Each cartoon is composed of 20 years of age. So these guys thought that they can become gods. The alignment of the temples in Tikal, most of them are from east to west to better understand the movement of the heavens. There are 7 major temple pyramids in Tikal. We tend to speculate that there was a special solar lighting that would come from, where all life would originate from, and would have to go back into to obtain immortality. They were to better understand the movement of the heavens and power.
The ceremonial centre of Tikal is surrounded by over 200 square miles of jungle. It operates as a national park while archaeological experts continue to dig amongst its ruins. For almost 500 years, the Cambodian city of Angkor was abandoned and became overgrown with layers of dense tropical forest. Rediscovered in 1860 by French explorer Henri Mahoude, this magnificent city is the finest example of Khmer architecture.
Angkor is one of the largest cities in Asia, even today. At its peak, in the middle to end of the 12th century, we reckon that Angkor had over 1 million people. Can you imagine a city the size of Angkor being abandoned? Story goes that the Siamese kept invading Angkor, and in fact they ransacked the place, and the royal family was forced to move south. In reality, this is probably not the case, because Angkor was abandoned slowly. I think that the general consensus is there may have been some strife, some natural strife, like a drought. The fact that many of the great barais have silted up is an indication that there was insufficient water coming through. Famine, disease, there is no evidence, but it's probable that it may be a combination of all of these. The main trade route was the Mekong and the Tonle Sap, and that they moved south to the confluence of the Tonle Sap and the Mekong and the Tonle Basak. There are 3 major rivers that converge in Phnom Penh because it made life trading much easier. So that's another possibility. The idea that Angkor was totally abandoned, completely overgrown, is a nice myth, really, but there are records wherever you go, when you start digging through history, that describe the various visits of, for example, missionaries. I mean, there are several descriptions of Jesuits coming in. I think it goes without saying that this is one of the most important sites of anywhere in the world. It's a legacy that very little was known about until fairly recently. I mean, you've had the problems of the Khmer Rouge and the fact that no one could visit it until the early 90s. I remember my first visit to Angkor, and particularly Angkor Wat, and I was one of 3 people in that complex. I remember hacking my way through the jungle, and I remember the magic. And so it's become a very popular destination, and particularly now that Angkor is a fairly safe place to visit compared to many other places in the world. It's coming to a stage now where the high hopes of the Ministry of Tourism are being met with an influx of probably close on 1 million people this year. It's one of the most exciting places that I've ever worked in.
Well, it's easy to see why the Temple of Angkor Wat is a top tourist attraction, but it's also a powerful symbol of the country, appearing on the national flag. Up among the clouds in the Peruvian Andes is the remote and sacred site of Machu Picchu. It was inhabited by the Incas for many years and then inexplicably abandoned, leaving archaeologists to ponder how and why the city was built. Well, today its stunning location and incredible architecture makes it one of the most beautiful and mysterious places in the world.
Machu means old, big. Picchu means mountain. It's the old mountain. The people lived here for about 100 years. They were living and building the city. It is an incomplete city. They were very spiritual people. They had one spiritual God, like a creator of the universe, the father of the sun. The Temple of the Sun here is one of the most beautiful constructions, one of the most perfect. There are many holy places around with many altars, temples for different elements like the sun, the water, the earth, the wind, the condor, the moon. According to the characteristics in the city, was probably for more noble people here. This place was discovered by local farmers. Local people were the true discoverers of Machu Picchu. The scientific discovery was by Hiram Bingham, an American explorer. He arrived in Cusco where he saw that beautiful city, and he said, "This looks like a living museum." Peru is a very special country because here there were many civilizations, and the most important one, the Inca civilization. Inca means king. Inca has only one person, he was the king. city, the location is wonderful. So it's facing to the east, to the sun. It's a perfect place. I think the people in Inca's times, they lived very happy here in Machu Picchu. For many people, this is a very sacred place, like a temple. Many people can feel the energy. They say that these mountains are like huge antennas, okay, to absorb the energy from the cosmos, and here we can feel. Many people come here to do spiritual ceremonies, change their lives. Some people come every year here. For me, it's like a special place close to the God. For us, this is our treasure. It's the most beautiful thing that we have. Look in the city, we are really proud of the Inca civilization. I'm really happy to be descendants of that people. For me, it's the most wonderful place that I know.
Well, that's all the travels we have time for today, but we do hope you've enjoyed seeing the world here on Equator HD. Make sure you join us next week for more fabulous journeys around the globe. Until then, I'm Laura Green.